Hi, everyone. So last night I saw Pillion with a group of friends, and I wanted to give you my initial thoughts on the movie. So it tells the story of Colin, who is essentially a sub bottom, and Ray, who is a dom top, and it chronicles their complicated relationship, and yet oddly very simple, just given the nature of how they choose to be together. For those of you who don't know, the story revolves around basically a Dom sub BDSM couple that navigate the parameters of what it means to be, a dominant top and essentially a submissive bottom. The movie was oddly sweet. I do agree with the reviewers who found it oddly sweet. But I will say that there were aspects of the film that made me very uncomfortable. But that's not necessarily a bad thing because I actually think that good cinema should leave you feeling at least a little bit uncomfortable. There were times where I felt like Colin really needed to stand up for himself, but that's because I'm not a sub bottom. Uh, and yeah, it really activated the sense of wanting to resist, this authority figure. You know what I mean? Like, stand up for yourself. Why are you letting him treat you like this? Why are you cooking him dinner and picking up after him? There were also, yeah, it also just activated a strong reaction in terms of like, gender roles in a relationship. Um, this idea of someone sort of being the submissive, dare I say, almost like housewife. And, as someone who sees himself as a feminist, there was something about that made me very uncomfortable. At the same time, I do understand and appreciate, BDSM relationships and any relationship where people consent, to the dynamics of what they choose to engage in is entirely their own. So if this is what they wanted, the consent was always there, but it also opened up questions about, well, what exactly is consent, not only in this kind of relationship but in any relationship. Yeah, lots of feelings. It was pretty hot. It was pretty sexy. They didn't shy away from much, but they also restrained themselves enough to get an 18A rating in Canada and not a rated R rating. So it wasn't, there were moments of possible explicitness, but you can go see for yourself. Yeah, I'm curious if anyone else saw the movie, like what your thoughts were. I definitely want to see it again. Again, this is an initial impression. It's not a deep dive or a deep analysis because you have to see a movie at least 2 to 3 times, and watching something in the theater is tough because you can't pause, you can't take notes, you can't like rewind or fast forward, and that's okay for an initial watch. I think being able to just kind of experience the film for what it is important. But yeah, I'm curious to hear your thoughts if you saw it. What do you think?